In just about every presidential election in recent history, a central question has been, how would the candidates deal with a hypothetical crisis? But there's nothing hypothetical about the crises the next president will be facing. The ongoing pandemic, the racial reckoning around the country, increasing environmental disasters, and growing economic uncertainty. So just as it has every election since 1988, Frontline is taking a closer look at the two people vying to lead the nation for the next 4 years.
The Choice tells the story of a deeply divided America through the lives of the men who want to lead it.
The only way you would get an acknowledgement out of Donald that he may have not done it right, he would say, I think my dad would have done that differently.
Fred Trump's concept that to be a Trump, you brook no criticism, you brook no defeat.
For Biden, politics is people, much more so than ideology or philosophy.
Wife of U.S. Senator Joseph Biden was killed today.
And I think is born out of this tragedy he experienced at the very start of his national career.
We can always get another senator, but they can't get another father.
An investigation of what drives them.
I'm joined now by the man behind that investigation, which Variety has called, quote, an oasis in the midst of this election. The director, producer, and writer of The Choice 2020, Michael Kirk. Michael, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining me.
You too, Jim.
So you look at a bunch of crises in each of their lives through the years, both personal and professional, and say they are predictive of how they have dealt with and will deal with things that matter to the American people. Let's start with COVID-19. What was predictive in Donald Trump's past that would suggest he'd give himself, as I said earlier, an A+ on the day that 200,000 people are declared dead in this country?
He spent a lot of time in his youth in a church in Manhattan that socialites and famous politicians like Richard Nixon and his father, the famous builder, Fred Trump, attended. And the preacher at that, the minister, was Norman Vincent Peale, who'd written the legendary and best-selling book, Power of Positive Thinking. And it really got into Donald Trump's head that you don't listen to experts. You don't listen to naysayers. You listen to experts who agree with you, but you don't listen to naysayers. And you look forward all the time. And we watched his casinos collapse in Atlantic City because of it. And that is a great sort of moment in our film that I think you can project into the coronavirus situation.
And where in Biden's past did you see how he's dealing with the pain of those who have lost someone or are scared out of their minds during the coronavirus?
Yeah, the thing about Biden that seems to be what he's offering here, he's not an ideological politician. He's not coming in with a big program. It's in a funny way, it's something he didn't ever think he would be. And he's never been a really viable national candidate until he came up with this as a way of being, sort of during the Obama administration when he was vice president. And that is grief counselor in chief. That he's been through enough tragedy, he's been to enough funerals, he's made enough mistakes in his own life that he feels like he could be a voice of calm, reassurance, tell you it's going to be all right even though it's painful, and that seems to be his calling card.
You know, with that photograph of him hugging the father of the cop one of the cops who was killed in New York City, Mr. Liu, on his sidewalk, these two fathers just in this tight embrace is just knocks you off your feet. So on the issue of race, most think, as do you, I know, that it all goes back further, but became high profile during the Central Park Five. Wes Lowery used to be at the Globe, used to be at the Washington Post. I thought nailed it exactly. Here's what Lowery had to say to you.
Trump found a way to insert himself into the story, to signal where he was on these issues, and began to learn the lesson that if you can capture that fear and you can become the champion for those afraid people, that there's a lot of political opportunity in that.
That's exactly what it is it not?
That's it. That's it. That's exactly it. And you can trace that through birtherism all the way up to what's happening in Washington now.
And on Joe Biden, it's on a much more intimate, much lower profile. It's all about a pool, not an alleged savaging, which turned out not to have been done by the Central Park Five. Tell the pool story if you can, Michael.
He's a 19-year-old, and he gets a job. He's one of two white guys that gets a job at a pool where mostly used by black children. The pool itself is kind of owned and operated by gangs from the neighborhood. The deep end is one gang, the shallow end is another gang. And Joe's job is to deal with this as this 19-year-old white Irish guy from the suburbs, and he figures it out. And he has a little dicey at times and whatever, but he makes a couple of really lifelong friendships with gang leaders. One of them, a guy who likes to call himself Mouse, and he and Mouse are still tight, right up to today. And I interviewed Mouse at some length, and he said what he did was he took Joe, who was unafraid and just sort of a kid, and he took him into the neighborhood and he introduced him around, and he would prepare him to go into houses, and that Joe just kind of figured it all out and formed relationships then that he, when he ran for the Senate at 29, too young to actually sit in the seat yet, he wins because of the black vote in Wilmington. Mm-hmm. Largely not because of a policy thing, but because they knew him and they trusted him and they liked him. And I didn't know any of that when we started this film about Joe Biden. It's a personal thing. It's not policy.
As I said to you today on the radio, when I was listening to Mouse and then listening to Jim Clyburn, a guy in his community moving to the most powerful African-American in Congress, what they both said about Joe Biden, they could have exchanged words and been saying the same thing. There's one author you deal with. I love this woman. She was great in your thing. Who refers to Trump as the product of the school of Dad, the school of Roy, and the school of Peele. Well, you just explained the Norman Vincent Peale. Briefly explain the Dad and Roy part of her piece there.
Donald Trump grew up in such a dysfunctional house. I won't go into detail about the mom, but it's at the beginning of our film. The dad, a winner, loser, zero-sum kind of a guy. You're a winner or you're a loser. Donald has watched his brother get devastated by his dad, the heir apparent. The dad just basically gets rid of him. He's not a winner. Donald, it's your turn. And Donald is schooled in this sort of zero-sum perspective on it. The school of Roy is, of course, the notorious Roy Cohn, who taught him many of the things that we would perceive as bad habits, but Trump has turned into success all the way along. Fight back, never apologize, attack your enemies, all the things we're used to seeing Trump doing now.
So what is the choice in 2020? You've done 5 of these. What's the choice this time, Michael? It's
the starkest choice I've ever seen, partly because the country is so divided, also because it is not a choice about policy. We wager that it's about personality. It's about persona. I think it's a time when Americans are going to make a decision about what America is by choosing one of these two men who represent starkly different Americas.
Michael, before you leave, I can't ignore a film you made last year called Supreme Revenge. Talk about predictive of the future. It's about this Mitch McConnell's lifelong quest after the defeat of Bork to do exactly what he's doing. In a couple of seconds here, what did we learn in Frontline Supreme Revenge that informs us about what's going on now post the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
The thing we discovered when we made this film is that Mitch McConnell has been on a grievance-driven, revenge-driven quest to politicize the process of picking United States Supreme Court judges ever since the very beginning. This is job number one for Mitch McConnell. Make no mistake about it. And he proved it with the Merrick Garland moment, which is too arcane to really explain here, but it's sufficient to say. And he went against his own rules, what they called the McConnell rule. And now he's pushing hard to get a new justice in for a president that may or may not be in the seat when the person is sworn in. So that's the Mitch McConnell story. It's worth taking another look at that film because it is the politicization of the Supreme Court.
So after you watch The Choice tonight, You can watch Supreme Revenge online. Michael Kirk, congratulations on another great piece of work. I really appreciate your time.
Many thanks, Jim.
The Choice 2020, Trump versus Biden, premieres tonight at 9 right here on GBH2. You can also find it now on the PBS video app and online at pbs.org/frontline.